do you choose to accept it is to watch my own personal ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible movies to date. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to the Mission Impossible series. This is my own personal ranking of all 7 movies. We now officially have 7 Mission Impossible movies. Possibly next year we'll get Mission Impossible Part 2. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, excuse me. But with the strikes going on, it might get delayed. But hey, you never know. Magic might happen. But sorry, this ranking is very late. I wanted to do it over the weekend, but my Christopher Nolan ranking review series was up, and I was busy with that. And if you have not checked those out, please do yourself a favor and go check those out. But it's here, and this is my own personal ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible movies as of 2023. By the time we get Dead Reckoning Part 2, all of my thoughts might change, but this is my ranking as of right now. And at number 7 to me is kind of easily the worst of the series, and that is Mission Impossible 2. Now, this is because when I say worst of the franchise, I don't think there's not a bad Mission Impossible movie. I feel every Mission Impossible movie is great. I feel every Mission Impossible is a lot of fun. But to me, Mission Impossible 2 it just doesn't age well. I know a lot of you might have already heard that from other reviewers or other sites, but it's true. When I heard everybody saying how this movie does not age well, it's ages poorly compared to all the other ones, I'm like, well, how bad can I be? When I originally watched it, I'm like, okay, yeah, it doesn't age very well. And especially compared to all the other movies, you're like, oh yeah, this one does not age very well. Now, back when I first watched it, I thought it was really good, but over time, I don't know if it's because I watched the other ones. This movie just seems boring. This is not a movie I would probably ever rewatch. I do like the new love interest that we get here, but I don't really care for the villain of this movie. I can't even remember his name. He's that forgettable. I don't care for him. He's not interesting. He's not intimidating. And I don't even remember a single thing about him. It's just like that he's trying to get his hands on this, like, device or something. I don't know. But yeah, compared to all the other Mission Impossible movies, this movie seems like a downfall, but it's still at least rewatchable, which is still a good thing. But I don't think, compared to all the other ones, this would be the one that I would put on. And at number 6 is the one that started it all, and that is Mission Impossible. Now, just because this one is at number 6, that does not mean I hate this movie. That does not mean that this is one of the worst movies ever made. No, but compared to the ones above it that I will be talking about, it just seems like a downfall. But I still enjoy this movie. I love the direction Brian De Palma takes it. I love the being introduced to this cast. I love being introduced to these characters. But compared to the action and the stunts compared to all the other movies, this one just it's like The only really great stunt that we get in this movie is the zipline scene, which everybody knows about, where he's like hanging down and like sweat is dripping down from his glasses, and then he's just in this white room and he has to be quiet as possible or alarm will go off. That's a very iconic scene, and I think everybody knows that scene, even if they haven't watched the Mission Impossible series. But compared to the movies above it, I don't think it's as great or as rewatchable. And at number 5, which probably is a unpopular pick, and I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but fuck it. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. This one I see a lot of people put at their number 2 or at their number 1 or like at least in their top 3. And I went, I mean, yeah, it was cool, but compared to the other ones above it, I really love this movie. This one was really good, and I almost considered putting this in my top 3, but compared to all the movies above it, it's just like, okay, yeah, this one's really good, but this to me has the best team of the franchise. I feel the comedic elements in this movie are really good, especially the best action sequence in this entire franchise is when he's climbing up the building and all that, which is a stunt that Tom Cruise actually performed. That crazy motherfucker. He should be dead. By the way, he needs to be dead for all these stunts he's pulling off. Like, and especially when you're watching it and when he slips down, you like you grip your seat like, oh fuck. And especially for someone who is terrified of heights, terrified. Like, I will not stand on top of a roof. I am fucking petrified by him. But when you watch that sequence, you're like, this is so fucking awesome. This is so fucking cool. I think this movie is really good, but the one mixed element of this movie for me is the villain. I can't even tell you one thing about this guy. And then you also got like this weird assassin dude, and then this guy hunting down Ethan because he apparently blew up like the whole Russian place or something that's very important in Russia or something like that. Then you got the assassin, and then you got this guy that's got a briefcase. That's all you really get to know. I can't tell you one thing about this villain. He's not very memorable. He's not. You don't even get to know the fucking guy. He's just there. Like, he shows up in this movie for like 20 minutes. But this movie is really only focused on the characters and the mission, which I really like. I love this new team. I love the story of this movie. But just if it weren't for the villain, maybe this would have gone maybe two spots higher, maybe even three. And at number four is Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. This is an awesome fucking movie. When I say the comedy in Ghost Protocol was really good, this one is just better, especially with Simon Pegg. I love that Simon Pegg was like the star of this movie throughout the first half of the movie. I think the action in this movie is by far at its best of the franchise so far. I think that this movie was really good. I like the character of Ilsa. I think she's a nice addition to the franchise, even though I didn't know how to feel about her here because she kind of like kept betraying them over and over. I really like this movie, but this movie doesn't really lack of story, but you really don't care because there's just so much action going on. You don't even care what the hell is going on story-wise. And I also think the villain in this movie is okay. You don't really get to see much of him in this movie, but when you do get to see of him, I think he's pretty decent. He's enjoyable, but he does get carried on to Fallout, which I will be talking about soon. I really like Rogue Nation. It's a lot of fun. It's a great action movie. I love like that. This movie probably has the most dangerous stunts out of all the movies. Well, maybe not. Especially like that whole opening scene where he's hanging off the plane and all that. That's a really great scene, a very suspenseful scene. I think this movie is really great. The stunts and the action are at its best. And out of all the Mission Impossible movies, I feel I would put this movie on maybe the like third out of three. I would probably put this at number three for most rewatchable. But this movie is awesome. Coming in at number three, which was my favorite for basically almost this entire franchise, and that's Mission Impossible 3. Now, when I was doing my videos, watching all these movies, reviewing them, and I was like, okay, I sat down and watched Ghost Protocol, and was like, okay, Mission Impossible 3 was fucking awesome. I can't wait to see if this movie goes better. Okay, that was good, but I still prefer Mission Impossible 3. I was like, okay, Rogue Nation's supposed to be better than Ghost Protocol, and it's supposed to be the best out of the first four movies. Okay, that was really good. I still prefer 3. And then I was really excited for Fallout. Really ecstatic for Fallout. I'm like, okay, this is everybody's favorite. Let's see. You'll see that soon. And I was like, okay, 3 is a little bit better, but I changed my mind, which you will see soon. This is an awesome movie. For a while, this was my favorite Mission Impossible movie. I thought this movie was awesome. The action in this movie was by far out of the best of the franchise. I said that for Rogue Nation, but then I forgot about this movie. To me, I will put all of my money on the table saying that this is the best villain of the franchise. We've had great villains, we've had very great sequels, but to me, none of the villains have topped this guy. He is intimidating. The Owen character, he is intimidating, especially that opening scene where he's intimidating Ethan. Like, where's the rabbit's foot? And he's just pointing a gun at his wife. And then he's just like, I'm gonna count to 10, and or else I'm gonna count to 10 if you don't tell me where the rabbit's foot is. And he's like intimidating. He is scary as fuck, by the way. Like how he inserts like a bomb into your brain, and then when he activates it and all that, it can just blow up and all that. I also really like the love interest that we get here with Ethan's wife, and like hold the whole story where he doesn't want his wife to find out who he actually is because of the code that they have. Like, if you fall in love, you can't tell anybody who you really are and all that. You can't tell them anything of what you do and all that. She's a very great character, and I love how she earns Ethan's trust throughout the franchise, throughout this movie, where she trusts Ethan, like she doesn't call him like hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? She trusts him because she trusts him because she loves him and everything. I really love this movie. The action of this movie is at its best. I really had no issues with this movie. Maybe there aren't great stunts in this movie, but the stunts that they do use, especially that whole bridge scene, is just awesome. I love this movie. Maybe by the time Dead Reckoning Part 2 comes out, maybe this will be my number one, but this movie was fucking awesome. Coming in at number two. Now, by the time Dead Reckoning Part 2 comes out, maybe these two will flip flop. But, as of right now, my number two is Mission Impossible Fallout. I understand why a lot of people say that this is their favorite Mission Impossible movie. I completely understand if you are yelling at me in the comments right now saying, how the fuck could you put this at number two? This is an easy number one. Number two out of seven is not bad. I thought this movie was awesome. The action is at its best. The stunts are awesome. The Henry Cavill is awesome. The one thing I didn't really care about was the villain from Rogue Nation being carried on over here. If anything, I felt Henry Cavill should have been the main villain throughout the entire movie because he's a great actor and he's very intimidating and he's built greatly. He's built like a fucking machine to where he could have been the villain, but I do like the whole thing where they do a thing where he's like a partner in the beginning of the movie, and then he turns into like a villain throughout the rest of the movie. Other than that, this movie was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed this movie. I understand if this is your favorite of the franchise, but it's not my favorite. 2 out of 7 is not bad. That means it just takes the silver medal. Taking the gold medal is the new kid on the block, and that is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is how you do a Part 1. This is how you do a first half to a conclusion to a franchise. I cannot wait what they do with part two. This movie ended with me being satisfied because usually when they have part twos, they usually do like they end with a huge cliffhanger leading up to the next movie being like, see you next year. This movie does not do that. And I'm glad to hear that Tom Cruise actually came out recently saying that he would only do Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 if it had a good ending and not with a cliffhanger because he basically said, fuck that. Thank you, Tom Cruise. This was an awesome movie from beginning to end. This, to me, has the best story of the franchise so far. I really love this movie. The only downfall I could say about this movie, which is not really much, is like the whole AI villain shit going on in this movie. I didn't really care for. I was like, so the villain of this part 1 and 2 of Mission Impossible is a computer. Other than that, awesome action movie. It's my favorite Mission Impossible movie so far. By the time part 2 comes out, maybe I'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, this is the best Mission Impossible movie. I adored this movie. I cannot wait to watch it again. I'm going to go watch it in about a week or so. I am so excited to see it again. I love this movie, and if you have not seen this movie, please do yourself a favor. Please go watch it on the biggest screen possible. If you saw Top Gun Maverick in the theater, you're going to want to see this one in the theater. This is what going to the theater is made for. This is what the movies are made for. This is how you do an action movie. This is how you just make a movie. If you have not seen this movie, please do yourself a favor. Even if you haven't watched any of the other Mission Impossible movies, just go to the theater. You will not regret it. If you love Top Gun Maverick, you are going to adore this movie. That is it, everybody. That is my own personal ranking of all 7 Mission Impossible movies as of right now. By the time part 2 comes out, it might change. So like I said throughout this entire video, it might change. But thank you all so much for watching, and please leave me your own ranking in the comments below. Please don't yell at me that I had the wrong ranking, and don't send death threats to me or my mother. Just do the same, just show me your ranking in the comments below. We don't all have to agree on the same thing. Just leave me your ranking. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, like it. If you loved it, subscribe and hit the bell notification so you will get notified for my latest videos. Please share this movie. Jesus. Please share this video, and as always, see you next time.